What if the Earth's continents, once united in a single supercontinent, could be reassembled once again? Imagine the cataclysmic forces required, the mysteries it could unravel, and the world-shifting consequences. Could a new Pangaea reveal forgotten ancient truths buried beneath the ocean's depths? The world we know may just be a fragile moment in an endless dance of shifting landmasses. But what does this mean for our future? Let's explore the terrifying possibility together. Are we ready for a second Pangaea? The Earth, a timeless entity, was once a singular landmass. Its continents pressed tightly together in one colossal embrace, forming Pangaea. The idea of this ancient supercontinent is not just a curiosity but a key to understanding our planet's evolving face. Imagine a world where there were no oceans as we know them today, no distinct boundaries separating the continents, just a unified landmass stretching as far as the eye could see. It existed roughly 300 million years ago, a brief flicker in Earth's long history, a time when life began to flourish under conditions we can only dream of. Pangaea was encircled by a vast ocean, Pantalassa, which may have held within it the very origins of life as we understand it. The breaking apart of this vast landmass marked the beginning of a dynamic, ever-changing planet. As the tectonic plates that once held the continents together slowly fractured, so did the Earth's future. The collision and divergence of these plates formed the 7 continents we recognize today, each a puzzle piece of a forgotten whole. Yet, within these pieces lie stories, both ancient and modern, of Earth's transformation. The shifting of continents isn't just geological, it's cosmic, a continual metamorphosis that both shapes and reshapes the world. As we trace back to that single unified landmass, we're reminded that our Earth is in a constant state of motion, its past written in the layers of rock beneath our feet. This process of drifting and reshaping is not a static one, but a vibrant, relentless force of nature, constantly unfolding. The legacy of Pangaea is present in every earthquake, every volcanic eruption, and every mountain range. The idea that the continents were once connected challenges our perceptions of the planet's age and our place within it. It's not just a history lesson, it's a reminder that the Earth's journey is far from over. In many ways, the story of Pangaea is the beginning of a narrative that stretches through time, one that speaks of landmasses in motion, of creatures that evolved and vanished, and of the Earth's ongoing transformation. As we stand on the land today, we are walking on the remnants of that ancient supercontinent, feeling the echoes of its history in the very ground beneath us. The Earth is not a static object. It is a living, breathing entity, ever-changing and ever-evolving. As we explore the possibility of Pangaea's return, we are not just looking at a geographical event, we are witnessing a grand, cyclical pattern in Earth's history, one that might, one day, see the continents come together again. In the early 20th century, the Earth's secrets were hidden beneath layers of skepticism and scientific uncertainty. But one man, Alfred Wegener, dared to lift the veil. His theory of continental drift was met with ridicule at first. How could the landmasses move? How could something as massive as a continent shift across the surface of the Earth? Yet, Wegener, a German meteorologist and geophysicist, saw what others did not. He noticed the striking similarities between the coastlines of continents like South America and Africa. It was as though they once fit together like pieces of a grand jigsaw puzzle, torn apart by some cosmic force. He studied rock formations, fossils, and even the alignment of mountain ranges across distant continents, all of which seemed to tell the same story. These lands were once joined, once part of a single supercontinent. Wegener's bold hypothesis proposed that the continents were not static, but had drifted apart over millions of years, slowly drifting across the globe. This notion was revolutionary. It shook the foundations of geoscience, challenging the prevailing idea that the continents had always been in their current positions. At first, Wegener's evidence was dismissed. The idea that continents could move seemed too fantastical for the scientific minds of the time. The prevailing belief was that the Earth was a solid, unchanging sphere, with fixed landmasses that didn't shift over time. But Wegener didn't give up. He brought forth evidence that seemed undeniable. He pointed to fossils of the same species found on continents separated by vast oceans. How could a reptile called Mesosaurus be found in both South America and Africa, unless these continents were once connected? Similarly, he pointed to glacial striations, scratches made by glaciers that seemed to align across now distant lands. His findings were an invitation to rethink everything we thought we knew about the world. Yet, despite his compelling evidence, Wegener's theory was still largely dismissed by many in the scientific community. The question was, how could continents move if they were so massive? Wegener had no explanation for the mechanism that could cause the continents to drift, and this lack of a mechanism meant that his theory could not gain widespread acceptance. However, Wegener's persistence eventually paid off. The world began to change. In the 1960s, after his death, scientists discovered new evidence through the emerging field of plate tectonics. With the advent of oceanography, scientists found that the ocean floor was not solid and immovable, but instead constantly shifting. The mid-ocean ridges, where new oceanic crust is formed, revealed the mechanism that Wegener had longed for: convection currents in the Earth's mantle, pushing and pulling the tectonic plates on the surface, causing them to drift. It was in this moment that Wegener's theory was finally vindicated, evolving into the modern understanding of plate tectonics, forever changing how we see our world. Wegener's theory opened the door to an entirely new way of thinking about Earth's history. He had dared to look beyond the present and imagine a time when continents were unified in a single landmass, a time that seemed so far removed from our own, yet held the key to understanding the planet's past and its future. Beneath our feet, a slow and relentless drama unfolds, one that shapes the surface of the Earth with the quiet, patient certainty of time itself. The forces that drive this unseen world are vast, powerful, and often beyond our comprehension. Tectonic plates, the Earth's colossal slabs of rock, float like islands atop the molten mantle beneath them, moved by forces far greater than we can ever truly grasp. The process begins in the core, where temperatures soar to thousands of degrees, heating the mantle to create currents that rise, then sink, in an endless cycle. These convection currents, as they are known, pull the plates in different directions. Imagine the surface of the Earth as a fragile crust, floating on a layer of semi-molten rock, constantly pushed and pulled by these currents. It is in this movement, over millions of years, that continents are formed, split apart, and, one day, perhaps drawn back together. The boundaries of these tectonic plates are where the real drama takes place, places where Earth's most powerful forces come into play. In subduction zones, one plate dives beneath another, dragging massive sections of land down into the mantle, where they melt and are recycled into the Earth. This process is the source of volcanic activity, the magma rising to the surface to form new land, while earthquakes shake the very ground we stand on, the result of plates slipping and grinding against each other. These are the epic moments when the Earth reveals its true power, shaking our fragile human world to remind us of its ancient, unyielding force. In contrast, at divergent boundaries, where plates pull apart, new land is created as magma from the mantle rises to fill the gap, forming new oceanic crust. These forces are invisible to most, but their effects are anything but subtle. The very shape of the continents, the rise of mountain ranges, the deepening of oceans, these are all the products of tectonic forces that have played out over hundreds of millions of years. As plates collide and pull apart, they create mountains, earthquakes, and volcanoes, shaping Earth's landscape in a dramatic and constant reshaping of its surface. Take, for example, the Himalayas, towering above the world as the result of India crashing into the Eurasian plate. The grinding collision of these two massive landmasses has given birth to the highest mountain range on Earth. But this process is far from over. The collision continues, with India still pushing into the Eurasian plate, slowly but surely causing the mountains to rise higher, year after year. And while these forces are active on land, they also play out beneath the oceans, where the movements of tectonic plates create rift valleys and new ocean basins. The Mid-Atlantic Ridge, for example, is a massive underwater mountain range formed by the divergent boundary between the Eurasian and North American plates, constantly pushing the continents apart. The geological forces that govern our planet are a reminder that nothing is ever truly still, not even the ground beneath our feet. As we stand on the Earth's surface, we are unaware of the immense pressures and movements happening beneath us. The land we see is but a fragile crust atop a dynamic, ever-moving foundation. The Earth's surface is, in many ways, an illusion of stability, while beneath, the planet is alive with forces beyond our comprehension. These forces, slow and relentless, continue to shape the future of our world, molding it over millions of years. The next chapter in this story, the re-emergence of a new supercontinent, is already written into the deep movements of the Earth's crust, waiting for the right moment to unfold. Imagine, if you will, the Earth in a constant, unrelenting cycle of birth and rebirth. A planet that is not static, but alive, constantly shifting, tearing itself apart only to piece itself back together again. This is the story of the supercontinent cycle, a process that has been unfolding for over 2 billion years. Every few hundred million years, Earth's tectonic plates converge, reassembling themselves into a single supercontinent, only to be shattered once again, scattered across the globe. This cycle is both terrifying and awe-inspiring, a reminder that the land we walk upon today is only a fleeting moment in the planet's vast history. The process begins with the drifting of plates, a gradual movement that slowly brings the continents together. As the plates converge, the seas between them begin to shrink, eventually closing up entirely, leaving one vast landmass stretching across the planet. This supercontinent, whether it was Rodinia, Pangaea, or one of its predecessors, dominates the Earth's surface, locking up the oceans and creating a single, unified world. But this unity is fleeting. Time marches on, and with it, the forces of nature that will once again tear the continents apart. As the supercontinent grows, the pressure between the plates builds, causing massive earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and the formation of mountain ranges. The Earth's crust buckles and folds under the immense stress, creating dramatic landscapes that tell the story of the planet's violent past. Over time, the supercontinent begins to fracture, with cracks appearing in the land, splitting it into smaller pieces. Eventually, these pieces break free, drifting away from one another, leaving behind a fractured world. This is the cycle: assembly, disintegration, and reassembly. A never-ending process that has shaped the Earth's surface for billions of years. Each time a supercontinent forms, it brings with it a unique set of challenges. The climate changes dramatically as the Earth's landmasses merge, creating a larger, more massive surface that alters atmospheric patterns. The oceans, now cut off from one another, become more acidic, their currents disrupted, and the once thriving ecosystems begin to collapse. What remains are the survivors, new species evolving in response to the altered environment. The destruction of one supercontinent marks the birth of another, a fresh start for life on Earth. The end of Pangaea, for example, gave rise to a new world, one with different continents, different oceans, and a new climate. But the cycle does not stop. As the plates continue to shift, the Earth is slowly preparing for the next great reassembly, the next supercontinent to rise from the ruins of the past. Some scientists believe that the next supercontinent, known as Pangaea Proxima, could form in the next 200 million years. The landmasses will once again collide, bringing with them the same cataclysmic events that have shaped Earth's history. Yet, even in this cataclysm, there is a sense of order, a pattern that can be traced back through the ages. The supercontinent cycle is a reminder of the planet's dynamic nature, a process that has created and destroyed life in cycles so long and vast that they defy human comprehension. It is a humbling thought to consider that the land we stand on, the cities we've built, and the civilizations we've created are just blips in a much larger story, one that will continue to unfold long after we are gone. As the cycle continues, we can only wonder, what will the next supercontinent look like, and what new worlds will emerge from its formation? Beneath our feet, the Earth is never still. It is in a constant state of movement, albeit imperceptible to our senses. The tectonic plates that form the Earth's crust are slowly drifting, shifting, and colliding, driven by forces so immense that they defy comprehension. These plates, which are gigantic sections of the Earth's outer shell, move at rates that seem almost laughably slow, only a few centimeters per year. Yet, in the grand scale of geological time, these small movements add up to something far more powerful. Over the course of millions of years, these subtle shifts can cause massive changes, creating mountain ranges, opening ocean basins, and even reshaping continents. It is through this slow and relentless movement that the Earth is constantly being remade. To understand the significance of these shifts, we need to consider not just the speed at which they happen, but the far-reaching impact they have on the planet. The plates move on top of the semi-molten layer of the Earth's mantle, and while the movement is gradual, the forces behind it are staggering. When two plates collide, they don't just slide over each other gently. The impact is intense, creating enormous pressure that leads to earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and the formation of mountain ranges. The Himalayas, the tallest mountain range on Earth, for example, are the result of India's collision with the Eurasian plate, a slow-motion crash that has been happening for millions of years. Even today, the two plates continue to push against each other, causing the mountains to grow taller by millimeters every year. But these collisions don't just result in mountains, they also reshape the very fabric of the Earth's surface. When two plates diverge, the process is equally dramatic. In places like the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, where the Eurasian and North American plates are pulling apart, magma rises from the mantle to fill the gap, creating new oceanic crust. This process, known as seafloor spreading, is what gives rise to vast underwater mountain ranges, which stretch across the ocean floors, shaping the geography of the seas. The speed of plate tectonics might seem slow when compared to the speed of light or sound, but the impact they have is immeasurable. Every earthquake that shakes the ground beneath us is a result of these movements. Every volcanic eruption that spews ash into the sky is a reminder of the raw power of these shifts. And even the gradual rise of new mountains or the deepening of ocean basins is part of the never-ending cycle of the Earth's dynamic surface. Imagine, then, the cumulative effect of these slow-moving shifts over millions of years. Continents that were once connected begin to separate, opening up vast oceans between them. Oceans that were once shallow become deep and vast, while landmasses that were once part of a supercontinent like Pangaea drift apart, eventually becoming the separate continents we know today. The separation of these landmasses not only changes the physical geography of the Earth, but also has profound effects on life. As the continents drift apart, species are isolated, leading to the evolution of unique ecosystems on each landmass. The breakup of Pangaea, for example, played a key role in the diversification of life on Earth, creating the distinct plants, animals, and climates we associate with today's continents. In a sense, the shifting plates are the Earth's version of a master sculptor, slowly chiseling away at the landscape, creating new forms and destroying old ones. As we stand on the Earth's surface, walking on the very land that has been shaped by these forces, we are reminded of how small and fleeting our existence is in the face of such immense, slow-moving power. Yet, the movement continues, day after day, year after year, as the plates inch closer to their next collision or divergence, altering the world in ways we may not fully understand until centuries later. Pangaea, once a colossal landmass that stretched across the Earth like a blanket of unity, began its slow, inevitable breakdown. It was a time when the very fabric of the Earth seemed to tremble, as tectonic forces beneath the surface began to tear at the seams of the supercontinent. Picture it. Massive earthquakes rumbling, the ground shaking as though it were the body of a living being in the throes of a great convulsion. The oceans, which had once been a mere gap between these ancient lands, began to widen, their waters slowly creeping into the cracks. The slow pull, the tug of immense geological forces, was pulling Pangaea apart. Over millions of years, the vast supercontinent began to fracture. The slow and deliberate movement of the tectonic plates, as though they were giant pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, split the landmass into two enormous sections, Laurasia to the north and Gondwana to the south. From here, the separation intensified, the land moving farther and farther apart as the oceans expanded. Imagine the violent dislocation of the Earth's crust, the crashing of mountains as the land rearranged itself, the violent waves of change that rippled through the world. For all its immensity, Pangaea was fragile, held together by the delicate balance of the Earth's tectonic forces. The first signs of the breakup were subtle. The climate began to change, and the once unified ecosystems, the vast forests and plains, became fragmented. Species were isolated, their populations scattered across different landmasses. The world was slowly becoming a patchwork quilt of life, each section evolving in its own way. But the process was slow, far slower than the life cycles of humans, stretching across the epochs. As the rift between Laurasia and Gondwana deepened, volcanic activity surged. Molten rock from the Earth's mantle pushed through the cracks, solidifying and creating new land in the process, while the oceans continued to carve away the edges of the continents. Massive volcanic eruptions reshaped entire landscapes, spewing ash into the atmosphere and causing climate disruptions that would last for millennia. The air would have been thick with dust, the sun dimmed by the fallout of volcanic explosions. What had once been a unified world was breaking into pieces, with the ancient bonds between the landmasses severed, never to be repaired again. The oceans rushed in, swallowing up what had once been part of the solid land, filling the gaps and creating the vast seas we know today. As the land masses shifted, new coastlines formed, the Earth's geography transforming into something unrecognizable. What had been one connected supercontinent now became the seeds for the modern continents, the Africa we know today, the Americas, Asia, and Europe, each one floating apart, defined by its own boundaries and isolated by the oceans. The breakup of Pangaea didn't just reshape the Earth's physical geography, it reshaped life itself. It set the stage for the evolution of the distinct plants and animals that now inhabit these separate continents. The isolation caused by the separation led to the rise of new species, each evolving in response to its unique environment. The breakup of Pangaea, then, wasn't just a geographical event, it was a pivotal moment in the history of life on Earth, one that set in motion the course of evolution that would lead to the world we know today. Yet, in the distance, beyond the final splits of Pangaea, there's an unsettling thought. The Earth's history is not done. The same forces that tore Pangaea apart are still at work, and perhaps, someday, those same tectonic plates will collide once again. A new supercontinent may rise from the ashes of the old. The question lingers, heavy with the weight of possibility. Could the Earth, ever-changing and eternally dynamic, once again bring the continents together to form a new Pangaea? In the deep, shifting heart of the Earth, the tectonic plates continue their slow, imperceptible dance. Yet, with each passing year, the question becomes more than just a theoretical musing. As the Earth's surface is carved and reshaped by forces we barely understand, there's an underlying truth that the very mechanics that drove the breakup of Pangaea are still at work. The idea of a new supercontinent forming isn't some fantastical dream. It's a reality rooted in the fundamental processes that govern our planet. The Earth's crust, fragile and thin, is constantly in motion. The movements of these tectonic plates, powered by the searing heat of the mantle beneath, are pushing and pulling, sometimes gently, sometimes violently. And while the process is so slow it seems imperceptible in a human lifetime, the cumulative effect is staggering. The continents, over millions of years, will continue to drift, slowly but inexorably, until they are pulled together again. It's not a question of if, but when. Scientists predict that in approximately 200 million years, the Earth's continents could come together once more to form a new supercontinent, often referred to as Pangaea Proxima. This new Pangaea would be a very different world from the one we know today. The process of reassembling the landmasses will not be a simple merging of continents, but rather a violent, cataclysmic event, with oceans shrinking, mountain ranges rising, and volcanic eruptions shaking the very core of the planet. The boundaries between the continents will no longer be familiar. Imagine a new landmass, formed by the collision of Africa, Europe, the Americas, and Asia, with vast oceans closing in, giving way to newly formed seas. But as awe-inspiring as this scenario may sound, the formation of a new supercontinent will be anything but peaceful. As the continents crash together, the forces at play will result in violent earthquakes and massive volcanic eruptions. Entire ecosystems will be wiped out, while others will be reborn in the chaos. The atmosphere will change, possibly triggering extreme climate shifts, with new patterns of winds, rain, and temperature that will radically alter life on Earth. Just as the breakup of Pangaea gave rise to new species through isolation, the collision of continents will trigger another wave of evolution, forcing life to adapt to the new, harsher world that will emerge. The formation of a new supercontinent, in many ways, will be the climax of the Earth's ever-changing journey, a monumental event that will once again define the future of the planet. Yet, even as we look ahead to the distant future, there's a deeper, more humbling realization. Earth is not a machine in need of repair, nor is it a world that stands still. It is alive, changing, moving, constantly reshaping itself in a never-ending cycle. The possibility of a new Pangaea is not just the story of geological processes. It is the story of time itself, how long it stretches, how much it can reshape, and how little we, as humans, truly understand of the forces at work. As we watch the slow-motion collision of continents from our limited perspective, we are left to ponder the future of our world, as the Earth prepares for another rebirth, one that will leave its own indelible mark on the story of life. As the continents slowly drift and collide, the oceans that have separated them for millions of years begin to shrink, while new seas form in their place. Imagine the world we know, the great oceans that divide the continents, no longer existing as they do today. Instead, a massive landmass, Pangaea Proxima, begins to rise from the shifting tectonic plates, folding the Earth's crust in ways we can scarcely comprehend. The vast Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, which we now consider permanent fixtures of our world, begin to close, retreating like the tides at the end of a storm. The seas, which once felt like endless, impenetrable barriers between land masses, now shift in their boundaries, with familiar coastlines disappearing into the distance, swallowed by the advancing tectonic forces. It is as though the Earth is preparing for a transformation, erasing the old world and creating a new one, shaped by the collision of continents. New seas and smaller oceans emerge where the land masses collide. These reborn waters will be different, their salinity and temperatures altered by the shifting geology. With each new formation, the Earth's climate will be irrevocably changed. The once familiar oceanic ecosystems, those vast blue expanses teeming with life, will be disrupted, giving way to entirely new marine environments. The creatures that once thrived in the deep waters of the Atlantic and Pacific will face new challenges as the seas take on different forms. What was once a seamless expanse of water now becomes a world of isolated, smaller oceans, shaped by the geographical puzzle pieces of the new supercontinent. These reborn seas will be both cradle and crucible, forging new paths for life to emerge and adapt to the harsh new conditions. But even as the oceans retreat, the land masses themselves are transformed by the relentless force of their collision. The pressure between the plates pushes up mountains and cracks the Earth's crust open, while deep trenches are carved into the seafloors, forming new underwater features. These oceanic trenches, deep and vast, will become the lifeblood of marine ecosystems, as the rise and fall of the oceans create a dynamic environment for life to flourish. Yet, the creation of these new waters is not without its turmoil. With the closure of the oceans, the land is exposed to new forces, volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, and shifting climates. The formation of new seas will bring not only beauty but chaos, as life adapts to its ever-changing surroundings. New coastlines emerge, where vast deserts once stood, and entire ecosystems are destroyed or forever altered. The water cycles, those delicate patterns of rain and evaporation, will be rewritten, with the formation of new seas contributing to the disruption of weather patterns. The air will grow thick with the dust of volcanic eruptions, as the Earth shakes beneath the weight of this rebirth. This violent reshaping of the planet is a reminder of how fragile the Earth's balance really is, a constant push and pull of life and death. Yet in the midst of this upheaval, new forms of life will find their place in these reborn seas. From the depths of the oceans to the shores that once seemed so distant, the planet will give birth to new species, adapted to thrive in this ever-changing world. The oceans, once vast and all-encompassing, will give way to new, smaller worlds, each teeming with the promise of renewal. even amidst the chaos of destruction. In the end, as the land masses continue their endless drift, and the oceans find new forms, the Earth will emerge as something entirely different, yet somehow familiar. The cycle of life, like the oceans themselves, will continue to turn, ever shifting, ever evolving, as the Earth becomes a new world altogether. Imagine the Earth's surface trembling under the weight of immense, unrelenting pressure, as two colossal landmasses are drawn together by the invisible, unstoppable forces beneath. The Earth's tectonic plates, once separated by oceans and mountains, now converge in an epic collision, a catastrophic event so powerful it reshapes the very planet we walk upon. Mountains rise in a heartbeat, volcanoes erupt in towering explosions, and the sky darkens as ash and smoke swirl into the atmosphere. The collision of continents is no gentle encounter, no slow, passive process. It is violent and unpredictable, a thunderous upheaval that breaks the Earth's crust and shatters its delicate balance. The Earth groans under the strain as the plates push against each other, grinding, folding, and buckling, until the ground itself is unrecognizable. The land that was once distant and separate now binds together in a mighty clash, sending shockwaves through the atmosphere. Earthquakes, violent and uncontrollable, shatter the land. The very ground beneath our feet heaves and splits, opening vast fissures where once there were solid, stable surfaces. These quakes, like the rumblings of an ancient giant, shake cities to their foundations, leveling entire civilizations in mere moments. The oceans, too, are affected by this upheaval, as new mountain ranges push up from the sea floor and vast trenches form, sending massive waves crashing over the coastlines. Coastal cities, long thought to be safe from the ocean's reach, are now inundated, swept away by the very forces that once separated them from the land. The collision is not just a physical meeting of two continents. It is an event that triggers a chain reaction across the Earth. Volcanoes, awakened by the relentless pressure beneath the surface, erupt with fury, spewing molten lava across the land. These eruptions reshape the landscape, creating new landforms, while also disrupting the atmosphere with plumes of ash that block out the sun, plunging the planet into darkness. In the aftermath of the collision, the world is left in chaos. The air is thick with dust and smoke, and the once familiar skies are replaced by the hazy remnants of volcanic fallout. As the new supercontinent begins to take shape, life is forced to adapt to the extreme conditions. The temperature shifts, and new weather patterns emerge, bringing violent storms and unpredictable climates. Destruction, however, is not the end. From this chaos, a new world is born. The collision of continents, while cataclysmic, also creates the conditions for new life to emerge. Species that survived the initial devastation begin to adapt to the harsh new environments, finding ways to thrive in a world that has been torn apart and rebuilt. The collision of continents is not just an event of destruction, it is the beginning of a new cycle, one that will ultimately lead to the evolution of new species, new ecosystems, and new ways of life. As the new landmass solidifies and the Earth begins to stabilize, the forces that drove this cataclysmic event will continue to shape the future of the planet. The collision of continents is both a destructive force and a creative one, for from this violent event comes the potential for rebirth, renewal, and a new world in which life will once again find its way. The Earth, once a stable and predictable world, is now a realm of chaos, a world in flux where nothing is as it once was. As the tectonic plates shift and collide, the consequences ripple through every corner of the planet. The collision of the continents creates vast new mountain ranges, deep ocean trenches, and violent volcanic eruptions. But it also triggers something far more insidious: global flood. The sea levels rise as the Earth's crust buckles, pushing the oceans into previously dry lands. The floodwaters are relentless, sweeping away everything in their path. Cities, towns, and entire civilizations are submerged as the oceans reclaim what was once land. From the coasts to the interior, the floodwaters spread, covering vast stretches of the Earth in a dark, unforgiving tide. What was once a thriving landscape is now lost beneath the waves, leaving only the ruins of human achievement. The floodwaters are not just a force of destruction. They are a signal of the shifting balance of the planet. These floods marked the transition from one world to another, from a stable existence to an era of uncertainty. As the oceans surge, the environment shifts, and the climate grows increasingly unpredictable. The once familiar patterns of rain, temperature, and wind are now fractured. The once reliable seasonal cycles of nature are broken, leaving ecosystems struggling to adapt to new conditions. In the wake of the floods, the Earth's atmosphere is altered, filled with ash and dust from the volcanic eruptions and the fires that ravaged the land. The sun is obscured by the thick smoke, and the planet cools in response, plunging into a period of deep, unpredictable climatic shifts. The once mild and temperate zones of the Earth become hostile and inhospitable, while areas once too cold for life are suddenly warmed by new atmospheric conditions. Some regions, now submerged, are lost forever beneath the rising seas, while new landmasses emerge from the depths. The environment is in constant flux, and the world is reshaped by the forces of nature. Plant and animal life, too, is affected by these radical changes. Some species perish in the floods or fail to adapt to the new hostile climates, while others evolve to survive in the aftermath of the chaos. These are the moments of rebirth for life on Earth, as new ecosystems rise from the wreckage of the old. The floodwaters carry with them the seeds of new beginnings, while also washing away the remnants of the past. The Earth is no longer the same. It is a new world, one where the rules of nature are rewritten, and life must fight to survive in a constantly changing environment. The floods, once seen as an unstoppable force of destruction, are now a symbol of renewal, of the Earth's ability to rebuild itself from the ashes. But with every flood comes a cost paid in the loss of land, species, and entire ways of life. And as the Earth's climate continues to shift, as new patterns emerge, the question remains: how will life on Earth adapt to this new world? The waters may recede, the land may settle, but the environmental shifts will continue to shape the future of the planet, and the survivors of this cataclysm will carry with them the scars of a world that was forever changed. As the land shifts and the oceans surge, the very fabric of life on Earth is torn apart. The environment, once familiar and predictable, is now an unpredictable and hostile place, where survival becomes a battle of adaptation. The once stable ecosystems are destabilized by the shifting tectonic plates, the violent volcanic eruptions, and the flooding seas. Plant life that once thrived in temperate zones now faces new, inhospitable conditions, while animals, unable to migrate fast enough, find themselves stranded in environments they are not built to survive. The floodwaters drown vast forests and fertile plains, leaving behind nothing but a desolate, waterlogged wasteland. In the aftermath of the floods, those few species that survived the initial devastation are left to pick up the pieces. For the first time in the planet's history, the laws of nature, which once seemed so fixed, are thrown into disarray. Species that once roamed freely across continents are suddenly separated by vast new oceans and mountain ranges. The once dominant species are forced to compete in new, uncharted territories, while some, unable to adapt, face extinction. For those that do survive, the changes are radical. Flora that once grew in temperate climates may now have to adapt to colder or warmer conditions, depending on where the shifting landmasses place them. New forests may emerge in areas once too cold for life, while others, stranded by the ocean's rise, may evolve into new, smaller species, forced to adapt to a life surrounded by water. Fauna, too, must evolve or perish. Animals that once roamed across vast plains are now confined to small, isolated pockets of land, forced to adapt to new food sources and harsher climates. The landscape is now unrecognizable from the world that came before. Some animals, perhaps those with specialized diets or behaviors, find themselves in immediate danger of extinction. Others, more adaptable, begin to evolve rapidly in response to the changing conditions. The mountains that once stood as barriers between species now become isolating forces, causing the development of entirely new subspecies, each adapted to the local environment. The oceans, too, change the very fabric of life within them. Species that once thrived in warm, shallow waters are now forced to adjust to deeper, cooler seas. New marine species begin to emerge, evolving to cope with the shifting oceanic currents and new coastal environments. The rise and fall of the seas have created new coastlines and underwater environments, breeding grounds for new and diverse marine life. But while the oceans give birth to new species, they also swallow up others. Coral reefs, once thriving ecosystems, are submerged by the rising tides, leaving behind only a shadow of their former selves. The impact on life, both on land and in the oceans, is profound. But amid the chaos, there is a glimmer of hope. As the Earth reshapes itself, life finds a way to adapt, to survive, and to flourish once again. The New World, born from the cataclysmic collision of continents, gives birth to a new era of life, one that will, over time, restore the balance that was lost. It will be a world of new beginnings, where the survivors of the great upheaval will shape the future of life on Earth. Yet, the scars of this transformation will remain, as the Earth's flora and fauna are forever marked by the violent changes that reshape their world. As the land trembles beneath the weight of tectonic collisions, and the seas swallow entire continents, the fate of humanity hangs precariously in the balance. With the oceans rising and the Earth's surface twisting in violent upheaval, the question becomes unavoidable. Could human civilization survive? Once bound by the comfort of geography connected by seas that served as barriers but also trade routes, humankind now faces an unprecedented crisis. The cities that once stood proudly on the coastlines are now drowning, their towering buildings swallowed by waves, their streets consumed by floods. No longer protected by the natural boundaries of land and water, the human race finds itself facing the same unpredictable forces that have shaped the planet for millions of years. Yet, despite the chaos, there is a strange, resilient hope that humanity, with its adaptability, might endure. The very same qualities that have allowed human civilizations to rise and fall, to innovate and adapt, will be tested like never before. The first immediate challenge is survival. With rising sea levels and catastrophic flooding, people must seek higher ground, moving away from the coasts and into the heart of continents where new forms of life and new environmental challenges await. The cities we've built, once symbols of our triumph over nature, now crumble beneath the weight of a planet that has grown far too restless to ignore. The infrastructure that took centuries to build roads, bridges, power plants, and communications networks becomes useless in the face of a new world order. Yet, human ingenuity and perseverance might shine through in the face of such destruction. The survivors, those who managed to escape the initial cataclysm, will have to rely on their resilience, their ability to adapt to a changing environment. What was once familiar will no longer be so. The old ways of living, of farming, of communication must be reinvented. People must learn to navigate a world where the environment no longer behaves as it once did. Farming will no longer take place in the fertile plains or along riverbanks. Those lands will be submerged, swept away by rising waters, or scorched by the volcanic eruptions. Instead, humanity must innovate, using every available resource to create sustainable ways of living. New technologies may emerge in response to the crisis: floating cities, vertical farming, alternative energy sources, and perhaps even new methods of communication across a fragmented world. The collapse of human civilization doesn't necessarily mean its extinction, but rather a rebirth. The survivors of the cataclysm will carry with them the lessons of the past, the knowledge of how humanity once thrived, and the will to rebuild from the ashes. The collapse of global trade and communications will force people to look inward, to rely on local resources and smaller communities. In a world divided by new oceans and mountains, humanity may become more localized, returning to a simpler, perhaps more primal way of life. Yet, even in this stripped-down existence, the spark of human innovation will not fade. As the Earth reshapes itself, so too will human society, reformed by the very forces that threatened its survival. The question remains: will humanity adapt quickly enough to overcome the challenges posed by a rapidly changing world, or will it be overwhelmed by the relentless forces of nature? The answer may not come immediately, but over time, as the new world settles into place, humanity's fate will be revealed. The struggle to survive will be hard, but the resilience of human spirit may prove to be the greatest force of all. In the ancient myths and legends passed down through generations, tales of great floods, lost civilizations, and landmasses swallowed by the sea have been recounted with reverence and awe, often in a tone that suggests more than simple storytelling. Across cultures, there are stories of an earth united in a single landmass, of gods who shaped the world, and of catastrophic events that tore the earth asunder. Could it be that these tales, told by those who lived long before us, were more than just the figments of imagination? What if our ancestors, far removed from the scientific understanding we now possess, somehow held knowledge of the world's ancient transformations, passed down through oral traditions and preserved in the mythology of ancient civilizations? From the ancient Greeks to the indigenous tribes of the Americas, from the Egyptians to the Norse, there are striking similarities in their stories of cataclysmic floods and great shifts in the Earth's surface. The myth of Atlantis, for example, speaks of a vast, powerful civilization that once existed on a grand continent, only to be swallowed by the sea in a single, catastrophic event. Could this be a memory of a time when the Earth's landmasses were indeed united in a supercontinent, and the oceans reclaimed vast territories as the tectonic plates shifted and the Earth's crust buckled under immense pressure? The Bible, too, tells of a great flood that wiped out all but a handful of humanity, a flood so vast that it seemed to engulf the entire world. Could this be a reflection of the global floods that occurred during the breakup of Pangaea, when the rising seas engulfed once familiar lands? And in the stories of the Maya and other Mesoamerican civilizations, there are references to a time before the current world, a time when the earth was different, a time when great upheavals reshaped the land. These ancient civilizations seem to have known, in some primal way, that the earth was a dynamic, ever-changing entity, a place where entire continents could disappear beneath the waves, only to be replaced by new landforms. What if these stories were not mere fantasies, but collective memories passed down through generations, echoing the dramatic geological events that shaped the world long before human civilization began? Could the knowledge of Pangaea, the great supercontinent, and its eventual breakup have been handed down through oral traditions, transformed into the mythologies we now recognize? It is a fascinating thought, one that suggests our ancestors may have understood the fragility of the earth in ways we are only beginning to appreciate today. Perhaps, in their wisdom, they recognize that the world we inhabit is not as stable as we think. Perhaps they understood that the forces of nature, the slow, relentless shifts of the tectonic plates, would one day bring the continents back together, just as they had once been. And so, they created stories, myths, and legends that served as both warnings and reflections of the world they knew, a world in constant motion. These tales may have been the only way they could make sense of the incomprehensible forces shaping their world, and in doing so, they may have preserved the memory of the Earth's great transformations, passed down through generations. As we look at the world today, with the knowledge we have gained through science and observation, we begin to see that perhaps the myths weren't so far from the truth after all. The landmasses we live on, once part of a single supercontinent, are slowly drifting back toward one another, just as the legends foretold. And perhaps, one day, in the distant future, the earth will once again bring them together just as the myths of old suggest. As the stories of ancient floods and lost lands are passed down through the generations, one question remains: can they be trusted as echoes of truth? Or are they merely the myths of a bygone era? Geologists, armed with modern tools and knowledge, have been on a mission to uncover the truth buried deep within the Earth's layers. Over the last century, they've pieced together evidence that suggests the Earth's surface is far from the static, unchanging entity it once appeared to be. The theory of continental drift, once ridiculed, has now blossomed into the science of plate tectonics, the study of the immense, slow-moving plates that form the Earth's crust. But while we now understand how continents drift apart, the real question remains: do the geological records support the ancient myths of a unified supercontinent, torn apart in a cataclysmic event? Beneath the layers of rock, evidence is abundant if you know where to look. One of the clearest pieces of evidence lies in the geological formations of the continents themselves. If you trace the coastlines of South America and Africa, you see a curious alignment, as though these two continents were once part of a single landmass. This isn't mere coincidence. Geologists have discovered matching rock formations on both sides of the Atlantic. Fossils of the same species, such as the extinct reptile Mesosaurus, have been found on both continents, separated by thousands of miles of ocean. This fossil evidence suggests that the two continents were once connected, as the species couldn't have crossed the ocean without some form of land bridge between them. As scientists delve deeper into the Earth's geology, they discover even more evidence of ancient land connections. The Appalachian Mountains, now nestled in the eastern United States, have geological similarities to the mountains in Scotland and parts of Western Europe. This evidence suggests that, long ago, these landmasses were once part of a unified supercontinent. Even the magnetic properties of rocks tell a story of the Earth's changing surface. As magma cools and solidifies along the mid-ocean ridges, the minerals within the rock align with the Earth's magnetic field at the time. When scientists examined these magnetic stripes, they found a striking pattern. The Earth's magnetic field has flipped over time, and as the tectonic plates moved apart, they preserved a record of this magnetic reversal, showing that the ocean floor was indeed spreading and that the continents were once part of a single landmass. This magnetic evidence offers a compelling narrative of the Earth's shifting crust and lends weight to the idea that the continents were once united. But while these geological clues strongly suggest that the Earth's surface has undergone dramatic changes, there is still skepticism among some scientists. The evidence is powerful, but it is still piecing together a complex puzzle. Can we truly say, with certainty, that the Earth once held a unified supercontinent like Pangaea? Or are we simply interpreting the geological record through the lens of ancient myths, projecting our modern understanding onto the past? The idea of Pangaea is supported by an overwhelming amount of geological evidence, but it's not a question of pure fact, it's one of interpretation. What the evidence makes clear, however, is that the Earth has a history of immense change. And while the specifics of that change remain open to debate, the undeniable truth is that the continents have not always been where they are today. The evidence, whether in the form of matching fossils, ancient rock formations, or the shifting magnetic fields, points to a reality where the world we know today is just the latest chapter in the Earth's long, ever-changing story. Could the ancient myths, then, be based on a distant, forgotten truth? It's a tantalizing thought that continues to fuel both scientific inquiry and the imagination. Imagine a world where the continents, once separated by vast oceans, come together again in a single, unified landmass, a new Pangaea. The impact on the Earth's climate would be nothing short of catastrophic, altering everything from weather patterns to ecosystems. With the vast majority of Earth's landmasses clustered together, the climate would be drastically different from what we experience today. In the center of this supercontinent, a massive, unforgiving desert would stretch for miles, its heat radiating outward, creating an inhospitable environment for much of life. With no oceans to moderate the climate, the interior of Pangaea would experience extreme temperatures, scorching heat by day and freezing cold by night. The lack of a moderating influence from the seas would also result in highly erratic weather patterns. Storms would grow more violent, driven by the immense difference in temperature between the land and the surrounding atmosphere. On the edges of this supercontinent, where the land meets the remaining oceans, we would see massive storms, powerful winds, and relentless rainfall. As the oceans cool or warm to new temperatures, these storms would intensify, swirling around the coasts in a furious dance of wind, rain, and violent energy. The climate in these coastal regions would be shaped by the forces of the land pushing against the sea, with ocean currents disrupted by the sudden absence of massive land masses that once created natural barriers and currents. This would lead to a rapid reconfiguration of Earth's weather systems, as new oceanic temperatures trigger shifts in the movement of air and water. These changes would not just impact the weather, but would also disrupt the delicate balance of the world's ecosystems. As deserts spread across the center of the supercontinent, once thriving forest ecosystems would wither and die, replaced by arid landscapes where only the hardiest of species could survive. In the newly formed coastal regions, forests might flourish, but only at the mercy of violent, unpredictable storms. The movement of the oceans and the warming or cooling of the seas would also radically alter the distribution of life on Earth. The new coastlines, shaped by the collision of continents, would carve new habitats for marine life, but these ecosystems would be fragile, constantly at the mercy of the changing tides. Animals would have to adapt rapidly to these new, volatile climates. Some species would perish, unable to cope with the rapid changes, while others would evolve to thrive in the newly hostile conditions. With such extreme environmental conditions, the forces of evolution would push life to adapt faster, and in ways we can only begin to imagine. The future climate of a new Pangaea would not be a stable one. It would be a world of extremes, extreme heat in the center, fierce storms along the coasts, and an unpredictable climate that challenges every form of life. Yet, as history has shown, life finds a way. The new climate would push the boundaries of what is possible, shaping new ecosystems and new forms of life that would come to define the world in the aftermath of this cataclysmic event. Humanity, too, would have to adapt, finding new ways to survive in a world that no longer resembles the Earth we know today. The new Pangaea would be a place of both destruction and rebirth, a harsh world where only the most adaptable species, both plant and animal, could thrive, but one that would, over time, find its new equilibrium. The future of life on this supercontinent, both human and non-human, would depend on the ability to not only survive, but to innovate, evolve, and adapt to a world shaped by the immense forces of nature. In the aftermath of a world reshaped by the collision of continents, volcanoes and earthquakes stand as the Earth's most potent forces of transformation, both destructive and creative. As the tectonic plates grind and shift, the pressure builds beneath the surface, causing massive fractures in the Earth's crust. These fractures become the conduits for molten rock and gas to escape, erupting in towering volcanoes that spew lava, ash, and gases into the atmosphere. The eruption is not just a natural disaster, it is an event that has the power to reshape entire landscapes. As the continents collide and break apart, volcanic activity reaches unprecedented levels. The Earth itself is scarred by the creation of new mountain ranges, while volcanic islands rise from the sea, formed from the molten rock that escapes the depths of the planet. The eruptions reshape the environment, altering the climate, the geography, and the ecosystems. Ash clouds fill the sky, blocking out the sun and cooling the Earth's surface, plunging it into a darkness that disrupts plant life and hinders photosynthesis. The once fertile lands, now covered in volcanic ash, are rendered barren. But in this chaos, new lands are formed, and new species may arise to take advantage of the changing environment. But it is not just volcanoes that wreak havoc on the planet during this time of upheaval. Earthquakes, too, are a constant reminder of the Earth's restless nature. As the tectonic plates continue to move, they rub, grind, and collide, creating powerful shocks that ripple through the Earth's crust. These quakes are felt far and wide, shaking the ground beneath cities, forests, and oceans. Mountains are raised, valleys are created, and once stable ground becomes a shifting, unstable surface. The energy released by these quakes can be catastrophic, leveling entire cities, creating massive fissures in the Earth's surface, and triggering landslides that engulf everything in their path. The impact on human civilizations is profound, as the structures and infrastructure built over centuries are reduced to rubble. Yet, while these forces are capable of great destruction, they also have the power to create. Volcanic activity forms new islands and landmasses, giving birth to new ecosystems that will eventually evolve in response to the ever-changing environment. Earthquakes, by shifting the land, can create new rivers, lakes, and coastlines, altering the course of water and giving rise to new habitats. In this dynamic, chaotic world, the role of volcanoes and earthquakes becomes clear. They are the architects of change. They break down the old world, but in doing so, they make room for the new. The once stable, predictable Earth becomes a place of constant flux, where the land and life are continually reshaped by these powerful forces. For those who survive the initial upheaval, the challenge will be to adapt to a world where volcanoes continue to erupt and earthquakes continue to shake the very ground beneath their feet. Yet even in this turmoil, There is a strange beauty to the Earth's violent transformation. The landscape, although scarred, is also being reborn, and from the ashes of destruction, life will find a way to thrive once more. The role of volcanoes and earthquakes in the future world is not just one of devastation, it is one of renewal and rebirth. The Earth's violent forces are both the end of one world and the beginning of another, where new species, new landscapes, and new possibilities await. As the dust settles and the Earth recovers from the violent upheavals of tectonic shifts, volcanic eruptions, and relentless earthquakes, the planet begins to rebuild itself, but in ways no one could have anticipated. The collision of continents, the rise and fall of oceans, the scorching deserts formed at the heart of the new supercontinent. All of this destruction is not the end, but the beginning of something far more profound. From the broken pieces of the old world, entirely new ecosystems begin to emerge, shaped by the remnants of the old and the forces that have redefined the planet's surface. The land, once familiar, is now a strange and unpredictable place. In the wake of volcanic activity, new mountains rise where once there were seas, and islands form where continents were once solid. The ash and lava, while initially devastating to existing life, create fertile ground for new plants to take root. Over time, these plants begin to thrive in the nutrient-rich soil left behind by the eruptions. What was once barren becomes lush again, as hardy species of flora adapt to the changing conditions. In the new world, the ecosystems are far more fragmented than before. The vast stretches of land that once connected entire continents are now divided by new oceans, rivers, and mountain ranges. Species that once roamed freely are now confined to smaller, isolated habitats where they must adapt rapidly or face extinction. Yet, this isolation leads to rapid evolution. Species once bound by the same environmental pressures evolve in unique ways, creating new subspecies and even entirely new species that are better suited to their specific, now isolated environments. The ocean, too, is radically transformed. Once a barrier between continents, the seas now shape the Earth's new geography, with new coastlines, new marine ecosystems, and a reconfiguration of the world's oceanic currents. The rise of new islands, created by volcanic activity, offers new homes for marine life, with coral reefs forming in the shallow waters around these islands. These reefs, now isolated from one another by vast stretches of ocean, will evolve independently, creating new forms of marine life that have never been seen before. The creation of new ecosystems is not without its struggles. The extreme temperatures at the heart of the supercontinent create harsh desert climates where only the toughest organisms can survive. Yet even in these hostile conditions, life finds a way. New species of plants and animals evolve to withstand the intense heat, the lack of water, and the unforgiving environment. These new ecosystems, born from the Earth's violent transformation, are fragile, yet incredibly resilient. They are a testament to the power of life to adapt, to endure, and to thrive, even in the most extreme conditions. The world has become a patchwork of habitats, each one unique in its challenges and its beauty. From the scalding deserts to the lush forests growing on the volcanic soils, from the new marine environments to the isolated mountain ranges, each new ecosystem is a living, breathing testament to the Earth's ability to regenerate and evolve. The future of life on Earth will be defined by these new ecosystems, where species, human and non-human alike, will have to adapt to a world that is constantly shifting and changing. It is a world that will be both alien and familiar, a world where life has been given a chance to start over, where the old world has been swept away, and from the chaos, new life has emerged. In the aftermath of the world's cataclysmic transformation, humanity stands at a crossroads. The new Earth, shaped by volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, and the rise and fall of oceans, is vastly different from the world that humans once knew. Cities that were once symbols of human achievement now lie in ruins, swallowed by the sea or buried under layers of ash. The once familiar climate has turned erratic, and the ecosystems that sustained life are now fragmented, forcing both humans and the creatures that survived the great upheaval to adapt quickly to their changing world. But even in the face of such devastation, humanity's resilience shines through. Survivors, scattered across the new, fragmented continents, now find themselves rebuilding from the ground up. The networks that once connected societies, trade routes, communications, and transportation are now severed, and the global community is broken. What once was a world of interconnected nations is now a series of isolated pockets of humanity, each group facing its own unique challenges. Some have retreated to higher ground, while others cling to the remnants of their coastal cities, relying on whatever resources they can find. With the land masses now divided by vast oceans, humans must rely on their ingenuity and adaptability to find new ways to survive. Farming, once the foundation of human civilization, is now a challenge. The fertile plains that supported crops have been replaced by deserts, and the once rich soils are now barren or covered in volcanic ash. Water sources have been contaminated or lost altogether. Yet, humanity presses on, turning to new methods of agriculture, using vertical farming, hydroponics, and alternative energy sources to sustain themselves. Human innovation thrives in adversity. Technology, once a luxury, is now a lifeline. The remnants of the old world's infrastructure, old power grids, communication satellites, and transportation systems are repurposed, repaired, and rebuilt to serve the survivors. Yet, even as humanity begins to rebuild, there is a profound realization that the Earth is no longer the stable, predictable place it once was. The planet is dynamic, constantly shifting, and human civilization must learn to adapt to this new reality. The once unchanging seasons are now unpredictable, as weather patterns shift and storms become more frequent and violent. The oceans, once reliable trade routes, have now become vast, stormy barriers between isolated human communities. Coastal cities, once thriving hubs of commerce and culture, are now under constant threat from rising seas and violent storms. In this new world, human society is forced to rethink everything from governance and trade to how people interact with the environment. The survival of humanity is no longer guaranteed. The very world that once supported the flourishing of human civilization now seems a much harsher, more hostile place. Yet, even in the face of these challenges, the drive to survive, to adapt, and to thrive remains strong. The long-term impact on humanity is one of transformation not just of the physical landscape, but of society itself. New cultures and ways of life emerge as people find new ways to coexist with the planet's unpredictability. Human relationships with the Earth, once based on domination and control, now shift toward a more symbiotic understanding of survival. As humans struggle to adapt to the new world, they begin to understand the fragile, interdependent nature of life on Earth. The challenges are immense, but so too are the opportunities for rebirth, for humanity to evolve and create a new world, one born from the chaos of the old. The survivors will carry with them the knowledge of how the Earth was once shaped, but it is the next generation that will inherit the lessons of adaptation, resilience, and cooperation, ensuring that humanity has a future in a world that is constantly shifting beneath its feet. Could the continents really come back together to form another Pangaea? If the Earth is constantly reshaping itself, then the potential for a new supercontinent isn't just a possibility, it's a certainty, waiting for the right forces to align. Imagine the cataclysmic events, the rebirth of ancient ecosystems, and the challenges humanity would face in this new world. Want to know more about the Earth's future? Dive deeper into the mysteries of our planet and the forces that drive its transformation. Explore more and stay ahead of the curve. Discover the secrets of tectonic plates, volcanic activity, and the fascinating story of Earth's evolution. Subscribe now for more thought-provoking content on the mysteries of our world. As the Earth slowly stabilizes from the great upheaval that split it apart, a new, inevitable cycle begins to take shape. The land masses that were once separated by vast oceans are drifting back together, drawn by the same tectonic forces that tore them apart in the first place. It is a slow, almost imperceptible process, but it is happening nonetheless. Millions of years from now, Earth will once again find itself united under a single supercontinent, a new Pangaea Proxima. The world we know, with its scattered continents and vast oceans, will be unrecognizable. What was once separated by miles of sea will become one unified landmass, stretching across the planet's surface, changing the very nature of the Earth's geography, climate, and ecosystems. The return of a new Pangaea is a reminder that nothing on Earth is permanent. The land we walk on today, the seas that separate us, the climate that shapes our world, all of these are in a constant state of flux, driven by the immense, slow-moving forces beneath the Earth's crust. As the continents drift together, they will reshape the Earth's climate once more. The once familiar weather patterns will be disrupted by the merging of these vast land masses, creating new deserts, forests, and oceans in their wake. The interior of the new supercontinent will become an inhospitable place, a vast, dry desert where extreme temperatures scorch the land during the day and freeze it at night. The coasts, however, will see new life. As the land masses collide, they will give birth to new mountain ranges, rivers, and valleys, creating new habitats for life to flourish. Yet, as the new supercontinent takes shape, it will not come without cost. The process of reunification will be violent, just as it was when the continents first split apart. Volcanoes will erupt, earthquakes will shake the land, and massive storms will rage across the surface. The oceans that once separated the continents will begin to shrink, and the remaining seas will be recast into new shapes. Life on Earth will be tested once again, as species are forced to adapt to the extreme conditions of this new world. Some species will thrive in the new environment, evolving to cope with the changes in temperature, pressure, and resources. Others, unable to keep pace with the rapid shifts in the landscape, will disappear, leaving behind only their fossilized remains. The return of a new Pangaea will not just be a physical transformation, it will also be a cultural and societal one. Humanity, if it survives the initial upheavals, will find itself facing a radically different world. The great cities of today, once built on coastlines and rivers, may be swallowed by the rising seas or buried under layers of volcanic ash. New societies will emerge, perhaps more localized, as people adapt to the challenges posed by the new environment. The new supercontinent will be a place of both destruction and rebirth, a world where life must continually evolve to survive. The lessons learned from the previous catastrophes will shape the survival strategies of future generations. And yet, as humanity looks to the future, there remains a powerful, humbling thought. The return of Pangaea, though a monumental event, is just another chapter in the Earth's long, ever-changing story. The forces that shape our world will continue to move, as they always have. And though the Earth may one day unite again, the dance of tectonic plates will never stop. The future will always be in motion, waiting to reveal the next great transformation. As the Earth continues its eternal dance, we can only imagine what future geologists, historians, and even humanity itself will uncover in the coming millennia. The reformation of a new supercontinent may be beyond our lifetime, but the ongoing movement of the continents reminds us of the fragility of our world. Could humanity rise from the ruins of this cataclysm, or would we fade into extinction like so many species before us? Only time will tell. Stay curious, keep questioning, and continue to explore the mysteries of our planet. What secrets lie beneath the Earth's surface? The answers are waiting to be discovered. Stay tuned for more captivating stories about Earth's past, present, and future.